You can close your books. This is my sermon. When I grow up, I will be tall enough to reach the branches that I need to climb the trees you get to climb when you're a grown-up. I was excited when Matilda the musical came out on Netflix this year. I admit to having watched it happily with my kids quite a number of times. This song, When I Grow Up, begins sweetly. The voices of children imagining how their lives will be different when they are grown up, beginning with being able to climb trees. It continues, and when I grow up, I will be smart enough to answer all the questions that you need to know the answers to before you're grown up. Smart enough to answer all the questions? Do I have to answer all the questions? Do you? Do we even know the questions? The children continue to sing, imagining the strength that they will have to overcome everything when they grow up. And they won't be afraid of the monsters under the bed. How often do we feel that we are not strong enough? How many of us still feel afraid of the monsters, figuratively, if not literally? I wonder, how would we answer? What does it mean to be a grown-up at each of our ages? And how do we think we are doing? I ask from a place of personal questioning and of love for our community, from which I have heard so many voices expressing feelings of inadequacy or failure or loneliness and now navigating all of it. Having answers to the big questions, balancing the weight of all that we schlep around with us, managing the uncountable fears that keep us awake at night. What are the standards to which we hold ourselves? Are they helpful? Reasonable? Do they lead to disappointment? How do they shape how we are friends or partners or parents? High expectations can be good, certainly, when they help us to grow, but sometimes what we've internalized is impossible. From comparing ourselves to other people's pictures and posts, to artificial intelligence making us wonder if an algorithm can be a better us, to the standards for success subconsciously set when we were children. A child imagines that adulthood means independence, that we won't need other people to help us do all of this when we grow up. Maybe we still feel that way as adults, that we should be able to do it all, and all on our own. But we really need each other, especially now, and especially for all of these big grown-up things we have to do. Actually, there is one refrain in the song that ironically nails it. And when I grow up, I will eat sweets every day on the way to work, and I will go to bed late every night. And I will wake up when the sun comes up, and I will watch cartoons until my eyes go square. And all I see are so many of us up so late our eyes go square, watching TV or lost in our devices, unable to quiet our minds, and then trudging through the mornings with sweets in our coffee or our tea or breakfast on the run. It doesn't quite live up to the way the kids had imagined it. Lots of sweets and screens, perhaps, but not the peace of mind they anticipate. And what about us? What, when we were kids, did we imagine awaited us when we got to be the grown-ups? And is it possible that the grown-ups we have turned out to be are good enough? Maybe even more than good enough? Knowing what I know, as one adult in a sea of struggling peers, Yom Kippur, our day for self-reflection that we hope leads to self-correction, is the time to figure out how to drop the fake "I've got it all figured out" facade and embrace a feeling that we are in fact already enough as we are. Blessed are you, pray Kate Bowler and Jessica Ritchie, trying to put aside the everything is possible mentality. You who know that sheer effort will not put these pieces back together. You who have taken yourself off the hook for perfection and discover rest and good enough instead. Yom Kippur is our day for hanging out in the discomfort of how we have missed the mark so that we can try to live differently in the new year. It's for this reason that we offer our litany of al-Chetz, the way we have wronged God and each other, and hold our fists to our hearts, as we did last night, as we sing Ashamnu, of the off-target ways that we have been guilty. From our liturgy, we ask God for forgiveness for, among other things, abuse of power, disrespect, dishonesty, envy, and greed. No question that we are all better adults for minimizing such behaviors. For all these sins, our God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, lead us to atonement. But also, we ought to ask for forgiveness for sins that stay in our hearts, for comparing ourselves to others, for believing we are not enough, for not treasuring our relationships, and for not helping our children see that we are more whole when we are honest. For these all too human missteps of trying to be perfect, our God of love, help us to forgive ourselves. The struggle with believing we are enough is as old as time, at least as recounted in the Torah. Moses struggled as we do. Could he meet the standards set for him by others? God, his family, his people, they saw him in a way that he did not see himself. He was, we might say in our language today, the first person to self-diagnose with imposter syndrome, that feeling that we are fooling everyone when our level of confidence is below our competence. Blessed am I, the one who sometimes feels unlovable, the one who can't stop replaying that one horrible moment over and over again. Never mind, it's been several years, and they definitely don't remember what I said. Blessed am I as I shake off the embarrassment of being human again today, in all of my cringe-worthy foot-in-mouth moments, in my old school photos, the crooked smiles, and the out-of-placeness I felt or still feel. Rabbi Yaffa Epstein explores imposter syndrome in saying, the word imposter comes from the Latin imponere, which means to place upon or to impose. There is an inherent connection, she teaches, between being an imposter and being an imposer. And our tradition is filled with people who lived with this, not only Moses, but also Abraham, Joseph, Esther, Ruth, and Jonah. They were not sure they could do what was being asked of them, uncertain about whether they were enough. Yet they moved forward. As they did so, they helped us shift the bar they were trying to reach by redefining the goal. They were paradigm shifters. Each one heard a calling and brought their true and authentic voice to the table. And each one of them changed the culture they lived in. They expanded it, opening it up to new perspectives, new ideas, new voices, new models of leadership. These imposters then became imposers. They allowed themselves and their outsider status to bring a freshness and a newness to the tradition. Rabbi Epstein, like so many of us who are well acquainted with feelings of self-doubt, invites us to pull up a chair with our biblical greats, to look for new meaning in an old word, and then ultimately to begin to change the status quo. How can we move from feeling like an imposter, like we are not enough, to becoming imposers, capable of shifting the way we get to feeling whole and enough without feeling that we have to be able to do it all? And why bother? This work is so hard. Because this nagging feeling of not being enough, it messes with us, with our confidence, with our sense of accomplishment, with our ability to experience joy. It also affects those closest to us, our peers, our partners, our children of all ages. So when we are unconvinced that this soul work is worth it for us, let's do it for the kids. Let's be motivated to model living as grown-ups who are not perpetually short of breath and short on self-esteem. As we become imposers, redefining enough so that we can live with fuller hearts, we may also save our children from feeling their own never quite good enough heartache. This summer I learned of a book called Never Enough, When Achievement Culture Becomes Toxic. The author, Jennifer Brenny Wallace, says, "Over the years, I had been curious as to why my children's childhood was so different than my own. Our contemporary lives felt so much busier. The weekends felt so much more fractured. Homework was much more intense. We feel caught. We want to set our children up for success, but parents feel their communities judging them. But they also just want to be parents and enjoy their kids and enjoy that connection. It's hard." Sound familiar? Wallace continues, "I wanted to find healthy achievers," she calls them. "I found these healthy strivers had a lot in common, and it all boils down to this idea psychologists call mattering. Kids who felt a healthy level of self-esteem were the ones who felt like they mattered to their parents, that they felt important and significant. These kids were relied on to add meaningful value back. Those kids had a high level of mattering that acted like a protective shield. It worked like a buoy that lifted them up and helped them to be resilient." How can we help our kids, our grandkids, and any of the children in our lives know that they are enough? We can give them opportunities to participate in our homes and our communities in ways that matter, that connect, and that are not defined by their grades or which sports team they make, or any other achievement that we could measure. Instead of celebrating exterior markers of status, we would celebrate the ways that their presence and contributions and love make a difference, how they matter. And we all have to feel like we matter. You, me, our children, our parents, the person sitting next to you, everyone. We, the grown-ups in the room, we have to build communities that help us build resilience and create durable relationships, to be in communities where we make time and space for each other, build networks of honest, non-judgmental support. We need people to see us and love us unconditionally, like we do with our own kids. We need to be in communities like Barnert, where all people of all ages know they are needed, where we ask each other to help, and we thank each other for the gifts we share. A community that gives us opportunities to be depended on and relied on. Judaism knows how to do this. Obligation, or mitzvah. One way that we foster mattering is through responsibility for each other. For people to really know us, and for us to be really known to others, writes columnist David French, we need to show up consistently. Over time, what starts out as obligation becomes less about doing something we must do and more about doing something we want to do, something that we can't imagine living without. Building community and cultivating lasting friendships means relaxing boundaries and giving up at least some autonomy and control. Many of us did this as children. We showed up for teams and clubs and youth groups, even though some days we were tired and it was a drag. I know this feeling. I imagine you do too. We don't always feel like rallying to celebrate Shabbat together or rearranging our plans to show up for Shiva. But we need each other. We matter to and for each other. We need to need each other. And we miss each other when we aren't present. When you aren't missed, you become lonely. And recent data found that 58% of American adults feel lonely. In other words, in a room full of 500 people, 290 people are lonely, with a whopping 79% of young adults reporting feeling lonely. We don't have to feel this lonely, this lacking in worth. We already have a community of mattering where each of us is enough exactly as we are. We get to help each other believe we are enough even when we feel like we are falling short of having all the answers or managing the proverbial monster underneath the bed. Perhaps there is no one moment of reaching that elusive grown-up stage. We don't stop having questions, bearing burdens, or feeling fearful. We don't know how to find a new job when we've lost the one that's part of our identity, or how to emerge in a community that knows us one way when something changes, be it due to divorce or illness or life choice. None of us is ever grown up enough to feel ready to mourn a partner, a sibling, a friend, or a child on our own. We are all grown up enough to opt into obligation for each other, for building community so that every person of every age is depended on, so that we know that we matter. Blessed are you who realize that community can help us see truth more fully, even if your chin has to be turned gently toward it. Being fragile amid a world of hammers takes courage. To be wrong, to learn something new, to choose humility and kindness over being right. May we be a people who don't have it all together and who are done posturing, curious, hopeful, courageous. During these holiest, open-hearted days, we return to our parent, Avinu Malkeinu, our mother, our father, our source, our grown-up, our God. The childhood classic with which I began offered us one culturally pervasive image of what it means to be a grown-up. Judaism offers us another way. The way we come before God today on Yom Kippur, not as fully formed, impenetrable adults, but as children, open to growth, soaking up the assurances that we matter, that we are loved, that we are enough. Today, we are both adults and children in the messy, never-ending process of becoming. We are all here. Just look at how many of us are here together, because nobody is holy, strong, or brave, and we definitely don't have all the answers. We do have this living toolbox of Jewish tradition, and we do have each other, and we are enough. Gemar Chatima Tova.